And that, you said a key thing, Katie. One thing I'm trying to do is show you when I do these studies to show you where I'm at on the website,
Right.
and to show you this graphic that's before you. Not so much that I think you need to teach it, but that you just know where it is and you know how to reference things because that's I think that's huge because I know that's almost why I think Revelation Timeline Decoded is the better website for people because in times deceptions there's just so much there. It's kind of challenging to get to everything, whereas this, everything's in a row. It's extremely logical, it's chronological, it's according to the layers and stuff, so it's very straightforward.
Right.
So it's almost easier, and it has the Second Thessalonians information, the Son of Perdition, and the Falling Away. I mean, it has everything in a row, chronological order, so it's pretty straightforward, I think. So,
Cool.
so, so the context, and in this chart, I mean, this, if you have it, you can. I blew it's enlarged here, but if you have it, you can look at it. But that's kind of the key for me to explain things and to keep everything in context because the context, so we're going to talk about the sea beast, but for proper context you just kind of look around and say, okay, well, what happened, just a quick review, what happened before the rise of the sea beast, right? So it's the Roman Empire. Satan used them to try to wipe out the early church. And if you can scroll up, the whole story's right here. If you
Yeah.
scroll up, the seals were poured out. So through the seal judgments, the Roman Empire was collapsing. It was the decline and the fall of the Roman Empire, and it's collapsing from civil war and heavy taxes and pestilence and all that, and people are dying, and there's just a lot of bloodshed. So it's collapsing, and then when you look at the narrative, and then Christians are being killed. So 10 million Christians are being killed, and then that ends because Satan goes, wait, my empire is collapsing. I'm trying to wipe out the early church, but the church just keeps growing faster, so I need to do something else. So he caused Constantine to create the Roman religion of Christianity, and you see that played out. So that's going on, ahead of time. That's the falling away. The falling away is going to happen before the rise of the Son of Perdition. So the last Roman emperor, so here's trumpet 4. So the trumpets are the war, army after army coming against the Roman Empire. And the fourth trumpet was the Heruli. And in 476, they took the Roman emperor captive and removed him from civil power. So there's your deadly head wound. The head of the Roman Empire just got taken away. And there's the deadly head wound. And when you think back to Second Thessalonians, and Paul was talking about the son of perdition is going to rise after the restrainer is removed, and the restrainer was the Roman emperor. As long as he was in power, the Roman popes, the bishops, I guess at that point or whatever, the pope could not take power. So the restrainer's been removed. The kingdom split into 10 civil kingdoms. And when you think about the image in Daniel, there's that statue, and he's got 10 toes. So there's 10 kingdoms. When you think about the beast in Daniel 7, it's got 10 horns, and that's the 10 civil kingdoms. So he's using symbols to give a literal fulfillment. So it's split into 10 civil kingdoms, and then among those civil kingdoms rose up the Pope of Rome, the little horn of Daniel 7, and he basically told the 10 civil kingdoms to bow down to his authority, and 3 of them would not, and so those 3 were plucked out, right? And what's really interesting, which I just find amazing how prophecy works, is the Heruli were one of those. They were one of those that got plucked out. Now think about that. The Heruli were sit there. They were used to remove the Roman emperor, and then they wouldn't bow down to the authority of the popes, so they actually got plucked out. That's amazing to me, right? It's the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and so the Vandals you can see right there, the Ostrogoths, and then that's part of the Goths. and the Heruli got plucked out. Those are the three that got plucked out. So the popes of Rome fulfilled that prophecy as the little horn who plucked out three. But it just, again, you see a repeated pattern of the Father using Assyria, to come judge the Israelites, and then Assyria got taken out, and then Babylon, right, came and judged them, and then Babylon got taken out by Medo-Persia, and then Rome, came and desolated the temple and the city in 70 AD, and then Rome got taken out. So he uses armies, pagan armies, to do his work because he's in charge of all armies and leaders. But then he actually judges them for who they are, and they get wiped out. And so you see this narrative, again with the Heruli who got used, but then they kind of got wiped out. So what's that?
I said that's an excellent point.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Well, and as we go forward, when we went through the review a couple weeks ago, if you project forward, look who was used to judge the Roman Catholic Church, right? It was the Jesuits. So here's the Jesuits, right? When you skip over to the bowls, the Jesuits were in charge of atheism taking hold in France. They caused the French Revolution. They caused the killing in France. They caused the Napoleonic Wars to spread in France and Spain, who had the mark of the beast on them because they obeyed the popes. They caused the Pope to be captured, right? And no doubt the Jesuits really probably caused the drying up of the Ottoman Empire. I mean, they probably, in the background, taking over countries and doing all this stuff, they probably caused that too. So in Bowl 7, the one world government, well, who's going to be doing that? It's going to be the Jesuits. And who's going to potentially burn or expose the Roman Catholic Church? It's going to be the Jesuits. So you just look at how amazing prophecy fulfillment is.
Very much.
So that's the context of where we're at. That's all the background, and that's why I love this graphic, because you can just see it in one picture. Roman Empire, it collapsed, broke into 10 civil kingdoms, little horn rose up, plucked out three. You can see what happened with the church, that there was, persecuted and then falling away, and they compromised. You can see what happened to the Roman Empire, and which led to, the Roman emperor being removed, which opened up, which everybody spoke about. And that's the theme you look at is, and we'll see that in a minute, is Daniel talked about it, right? Because he talked about it breaking into 10 parts and all that. So he talked about it. Paul talked about it in 2 Thessalonians 2 with the rise of the Son of Perdition when the restrainer is removed. So everybody, and then John talks about it. So everybody's pointing to the same event, and it's a significant event. It's the rise of the popes out of the Roman Empire. And we won't cover this right now, but we'll do Revelation 17 another day. But Revelation 17 is the other layer that we really didn't even kind of cover, but it's the same thing, where it's the vision of the harlot who's guilty of the blood of the saints, and she wears scarlet and purple and has the golden cup and all that stuff. And John wasn't totally getting that. He couldn't understand it. So the messenger backed up and said, well, let me explain. And he explained that 5 have fallen. One will last for a short time, and then the 8th head will be the popes of Rome. So that the short explanation is, he was talking about, the messenger was talking about 7 phases of the Roman Empire government. And that was kings, consuls, dictators, decemvirs, and then military tribunals. And so those are in the past. Those were the 5 that have fallen. One is, which was the imperial head, that was the emperors, which lasted until 476. So that's the one is. From 476 to 538 was the one that lasted a short time. So 38 years plus 24 years. That lasted a short space. And then the 8th head came out of the 7th. So Revelation 17 says the 8th came out of the 7. Well, the 8th head is the popes of Rome, which rose up out of the Roman Empire. So there's so many repeated narratives, and people separate them out, and they go, this is this, and this and this, and they're all pointing to the same thing. They're just giving you a different piece of the puzzle, a different description, right? And that's why this graphic helps, because you can visualize it. You can go, wow, that's talking about that. Everything's pointing back to the popes of Rome. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that is the context. So now let's go to the study. So I'm just on Revelation timeline decoded, and then I have the layers of, and we'll go through Revelation 12 sometime. I haven't really done that, but it's the Roman Empire basically. And then it melds into Revelation 13, Sea Beast. I mean, there really was no chapters when John wrote it. And then there's the Earth Beast, which is the Jesuits. But right now we're just on the Sea Beast. So again, same thing. I mean, it's I'll just give you the summary. You guys can read through this, but it's just the Roman Empire collapsing, and then the rise of the Sea Beast. And what I try to do a little bit is give like summaries up here. So it's just saying the Sea Beast is the popes of Rome that reigned for 1260 years, the Roman Catholic Church, popes of Rome, from 538 to 1798. So I try to give people a short explanation up front in these studies. Of who they are, what they did, that they tried to eliminate the two witnesses, that they were the Son of Perdition, they were the little horn of Daniel, and all that. But then I go verse by verse. And I probably should, if I could find a video, that's good, I would put it on here. So John talks about, and then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. And so we went through briefly before, like, there's your 10 horns. So John knows the prophecy in Daniel, right? John knows that, right? If John knows Daniel, then John knows that Babylon has fallen, and Medo-Persia has fallen, and Greece has fallen, and he knows that the 4th kingdom is Rome. Right, which is obviously in control of the world at when he's alive. So he knows the 10 horns. So that's his easy identifier, and that's our easy identifier. Who's the beast? Well, it's the same beast that Daniel was talking about, the 4th beast with the 10 horns. And obviously, it's talking about he has a blasphemous name. What that name is. It could be Holy Father, right?
Mm.
That would probably be a pretty good one, or Vicar of Christ, but I would say more than that, Holy Father, because that's just, you can't get any more blasphemous than that. And so when you look at terms in the Bible, it's talking about he's rising up out of the sea, and then the next beast is going to rise up out of the earth. Well, when you reference Revelation 17:15, it says, and again, Revelation 17 is describing the Roman Catholic Church, which rose up out of the vast Roman Empire, which rose out of the 10 civil kingdoms of the Roman Empire. So in Revelation 17, it gives us the definition. He says, and he saith to me, the waters which thou sawest, well, you got to read the King James, right? Where the horse that are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Well, that's the Roman Empire. You had different countries, you had different languages, but it's people. So water is people. So anytime you see, something that's talking about, even the holy, it's ironic, and I don't know the whole history, maybe someone knows, but they call it the Holy See, right? The Roman Catholic Church calls itself the Sea, right?
Right.
Why is that? What does that represent to them? Is that they're over a lot of people? Is that what the sea means?
I don't know.
Could be.
So I'd have to look it up, but how interesting is that, right? It's saying they're the sea beast and they call themselves the Holy See. Yeah.
Mm.
Again, the blasphemous name may be the Vicar of Christ or the Holy Father. And I won't go through all this stuff, but it's just stuff that I've read through books that I've tried to add to these studies. You look at the Roman Catholic Church's St. Peter's Basilica. Well, basilica means a place of a king, the abode of the basilic, the abode of the serpent. Right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even make this stuff up because the next verse, the dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And what does the basilica mean? It means little king. Wait, we just had the little horn, right? So he's the little horn of Daniel. Here's the little king, and it's a legendary reptile reputed to be king of serpents and said to have the power to cause death with a single glance. So I just, words have so much more depth than what we know. And everything's telling. And the fascinating part with them is the Roman Catholic Church can't not fulfill prophecy, right? So they can't not. I mean, they even if they know prophecy, they can't not fulfill it. They can't say, "Hey, we're going to change our colors now," so we're not scarlet, and then purple. They just can't. It is what it is. So if you go through the Vatican, there's actually several serpents and dragons in their artwork, um,
Oh yeah.
which is extremely telling. I mean, what kind of church has dragons in the crest? It would be like a Pope Vatican crest, and there's dragons. Really? Come on, people. It's just, it's crazy. So Revelation 13:2 says the beast was like a leopard, his feet were like a bear, his mouth was like a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. I think what John is saying is that when even though Rome comes in and captures, or you can start with Greece, even if when Greece comes in and captures the Babylonian territory, it's not like everything in Babylon suddenly just becomes Greece, right? So there's a melding. And so Greece was known for education and logic above revelation. Medo-Persia, obviously, they put the rule of law above mercy. So they were like legalistic and then just no mercy at all. And here's the law. And so they bring that to the table. And you can see that in Daniel 6, it talks about it. Babylon, was steeped in astrology and the spirits of the occult. So when he's given this description, when you look at the Roman Catholic Church, well, it's pretty much who they are, right? So they didn't have mercy on quote unquote heretics, right? Here's the law. This is the way it is, and we're going to kill you now, right? And they're steeped in astrology. They're into the occult. They put education and logic above, so they're really kind of a melding of the previous empires. And then the Vatican, and I need to find the reference for this. Someone asked me this, and I have to find it. But the Vatican is supposed to mean divining serpent. So in Latin, vatus means diviner, can equals serpent. It's called the Vatican, and it's a divining serpent. I mean, you just can't even make that up, right?
Right.
So, and there's so much more depth to what the Vatican is, that it's built on the old temple of Cybele. So on this hill opposing the seven hills of Rome was where they would go and they would make sacrifices in the temple of Cybele, and they would kill people making human sacrifices in the temple of Cybele. Well, the Vatican's built on top of that. So I just say, what kind of church does that? But they do that all the time. They have a lot of churches that are built on old places of pagan worship.
That's the Church of the Skull and Bones, mind you.
Yeah, right? Well, it is, and there's the Church of the Martyrs, which used to be the Pantheon in Rome. So the Pantheon in Rome was the place for all gods, and now it's a Roman Catholic Church. Come on, what kind of church would take over the Pantheon, right? Which was the place that worshipped all gods, and in fact, the Pantheon has an Egyptian obelisk right in front of it. And anytime you have an Egyptian obelisk in front of a temple, that designates that temple as a temple of sun worship, which tells you what St. Peter's Square is. It's a temple of sun worship. And so is the Pantheon, which is some martyrs, I forget, something Mary and the Martyrs Catholic Church or whatever. So, hi. And I think, I just make notes here, but you guys know, I mean, one of the grandest deceptions of the Jesuits is that the Antichrist, position of the Antichrist, if you will, is one person in the end times, right? And that understanding causes more people to stumble instead of them understanding that it's a position. And one of the points that I would make is like in Revelation 13, their reign went for 1260 years from 538 to 1798. But the text is not telling us that they stopped that they ceased to be, right? The text never tells us that they went away. So the popes of Rome are still here amongst us. It's just that they don't have the civil and ecclesiastic power and authority that they used to have, that they were allowed to reign officially for 1260 years, but they're still around. But it's a position, right? It's like the president of the United States, the king of England. It's been fulfilled by many people, which is, interesting because Messiah said, many people will come in my name. Well, many popes have come in his name,
Yeah.
technically. So, and then, early on in Revelation 13, because a lot of people, so the verse says, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and the world marveled and followed the beast. A lot of people assign that to the popes of Rome when they were taken captive in 1798. And it's not a wrong thought because he was taken captive. So it's kind of a repeat of what happened with the Roman emperor. But what John's pointing to is the Roman emperor being removed. That was the deadly head wound. And then when the popes of Rome were empowered in 538 and they took the title of Pontifex Maximus, they basically took, and that means they're in charge of civil and ecclesiastic authority over their world. The deadly head wound was healed. And so you notice that happened early in the description of the sea beast, not later at the end when the sea beast was removed from power, right? The deadly head wound was healed. And what's the next, on verse 5? And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. He is given authority to continue for 42 months. So see, the deadly head wound was healed, and then he was given power and authority to continue for 42 months. This happened before this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, the popes of Rome being taken away, it kind of is a deadly head wound, and I get why people would think that, but the true fulfillment, just like Paul, he talks about the falling away. Well, we can look back at the last 100 or 200 years and we go, well, there's been a falling away, and that's true. But the true fulfillment that Paul was pointing to was the falling away in the 4th century when the Roman Catholic Church, or Roman Christianity, was created, and there was a falling away from biblical truth to compromising with Rome and their new religion. So he's given, and here it's defining the 42 months. So, and you guys can go through the study. I probably won't go through all of it, but so here it's defining 42 months, and 42 months, divided by, if you go months, that's 3.5 years. And there's a study on here called 1260 Years of Great Tribulation. Because if you go through it, and I'll glance through it, and it's going to tell you the same thing. And then, and you know what? Repetition, you're going to hear the same thing from me a lot, but repetition is what works, right? Because we've all been programmed repeatedly with the false doctrine, and we got to repeatedly hear the true doctrine. But when you look at the study, so the little horn of Daniel, who persecuted the saints for a time, and a times, and a dividing a time. So a time is a year, times is 2 years, and a dividing a time is a half a year. So 3.5 years, or 1260 days, right? And you look at Revelation 11, it's saying the same thing. It's talking about 40 and 2 months. The church, the true church, would be persecuted by the Gentile church, the Roman Catholic Church. The 2 witnesses, same thing. It's using 1,203 square days. Again, it's 1260 days. Revelation 12, a time and half a time. And I don't know why there's so many terms used. I really don't. But because it's confusing, right? I mean, you have 42 months and you have times, and half a time and all this stuff, and it's kind of confusing. You're like, why don't you just summarize? So that's what I'm trying to do. So basically, it's all pointing to the same 1260-year time period from 538 to 1798. Comprehende?
Yes.
And once you tie that in together, now once again, you tie in the prophecies of Daniel, right? And Revelation, the two witnesses, and Revelation 13. So let's see. I don't know where I'm at anymore. So let's see.
Moses and Enoch, the two witnesses.
Right. So, and it was given, we'll go back to this, so 42 months. Look at it. Yeah, and he was given a mouth speaking great things. Well, recall in Daniel 7, it said there's going to be a little horn, and he's going to have a mouth, right? It's going to be like a man, he's going to have a mouth. Here's John telling you the same thing, right? He's telling you it's the same beast. He's telling you it's the Pope of Rome who's going to speak great things and blasphemies and giving control. I mean, they proclaim to be God, to be Jesus Christ in the flesh, to forgive sins, to provide salvation, and other blasphemies. And the two that Messiah was accused of was to be God. So when he proclaimed to be God, the Jews, got up in arms and said that's blasphemy. And when he proclaimed to forgive sins, same thing. Well, that's exactly what the popes of Rome have done. What's interesting is, you come to the end of the 42 months, and even like the Encyclopedia Britannica, says the ultimate humiliation of the church came when Pius V was driven out of Rome by the French armies in 1798, and in the following year was taken captive by them and dragged back to France, where he died. I mean, so it's it's right there in history. So how do you put markers? How do you put endpoints? How do you know when is the end of this 1260 years? Well, you look for stuff like that, right? Some argue 1793, and that the popes were empowered in 533. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't really matter. We know they fulfill prophecy. And it was granted to give to him to make war with the saints, to overcome them. Authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. And people assign this, every tribe and every tongue and every nation. Well, no man's done that. Well, we're talking about the Roman Empire here. And the fact is that in like the 12th and 13th century, the popes of Rome had authority over every king and all the tongues and different languages and nations of Europe. So he's already fulfilled this. And we know that they persecuted the saints during the Dark Ages and the Inquisitions so extensively that, back to the two witnesses study, that they were proclaimed as dead, that there was nobody opposing them, nobody witnessing against them. That's how severe it was. And you look at this, the Council of Florence, we define that the Holy Apostolic See and the Roman Pontiff hold the primacy over the whole world. That was written in 1439, right? So when people say, oh, it has to be some end times guy who controls the whole world, well, nope. They proclaimed that they controlled the whole world back then, right? So it's been fulfilled. So this summary, again, we'll go through the same things, and that's really what I'm trying to do with these. Is try to get people the big picture. So you give verse by verse explanations, but then you come here and same things we talked about. So, the rise of the popes of Rome were the little horn of Daniel, that it was the restrainer of 2 Thessalonians, described the Roman emperors who were restraining the popes from taking power. And then the sea beast rose up. And then Revelation 17, the same thing that I told you a while ago, that the eighth head rose up out of the seven. So you try to give people the big picture to say, look, Revelation 17, Revelation 13, 2 Thessalonians 2, and Daniel 7, they all point to the same thing. The popes of Rome rise into power. And by giving that multiple witness, I mean, you just disarm these people, hopefully, into this narrative of, oh, it's Islam and it's, some other person, or it's an atheist, or it's whatever. It's like, no, there's only one entity that fulfills all those people's prophecy. Just one. And then on the bottom of this study, I did the same thing. So I have that document that gives all the quotes about the popes. And so what I did is I pulled quotes that just really, like last time it was the Son of Perdition, so I focused on that. This one really gets into calling him the Antichrist. So like right in 1240, here's the Archbishop of Salzburg, and he's calling the Pope Antichrist. So for these people who go, oh yeah, they're not the Antichrist, and it's someone else, or whatever they're saying, or they're the false prophet, or they're this and that, it's like, no, here's Wycliffe, right? John Wycliffe saying, we suppose that Antichrist, the head of all these evil men, is the Pope of Rome, right? He said that in the 14th century. And you can go through all these, proclaiming popes of Rome. William Tyndale, the Pope is the Antichrist, and his doctrine is sprung of the devil.
Of the devil.
Right. So Zwingli was a great Swiss reformer, saying the same thing. I mean, I know that in it works the might and power of the devil. So what did Revelation 13 just say? It's empowered by the dragon, right? That is of the Antichrist. The papacy has to be abolished. I mean, they're just telling you straight up. John Calvin, great theologian. Martin Luther, and I got a quote from Martin Luther I'll share in just a minute. So you can just go through this. I won't go through, but there's major ones. I mean, there's individuals like that. There's Master John Bradford, who was burned. So he was one of those guys that was burned for his confession that the popes are the Antichrist. I mean, do people die in the flames and not rescind what they're saying if they don't really know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And Latimer was the other guy. So Bradford and Latimer burned to death, and he's asking the question, what fellowship hath Christ with the Antichrist, right? Nicholas Ridley, same guy. So that's the trio right there that got burned. Latimer, Ridley, same thing, right? And saying the see of Rome is the seat of Satan, and the bishops of the same that maintaineth the abominations thereof is Antichrist himself indeed. You just can't get any more clear than this, right? And he's writing this in the 16th century. Cranmer, Church of England, and those are more significant, I guess, because it's the whole church who's saying it, right? I mean, he ought therefore rather be called Antichrist and the successor of the scribes and Pharisees than Christ, vicar of, or St. Peter's successor. The Lutheran Confession, the Westminster Confession. I mean, this takes, I mean, look at this. I mean, the confession was ratified and established by an act of Parliament. Parliament had to pass this act, right? And it says there is no other head of the church but the Lord Jesus Christ, nor can the Pope of Rome in any sense, be head thereof, but is that Antichrist, that man of sin, that son of perdition, that exalteth himself in the church against Christ and all that is called God. I just can't get any more clear than that, right? And for you and me, I mean, just me reading these studies, it just, I know what I know. I know who the Antichrist is, but when I read these guys' confession, man, it just strengthens you.
Yes.
To be about your business, to defend, to expose, to be just like they are, and to expose. I mean, that again is what was the calling of the two witnesses. It was to proclaim salvation by Messiah, through his atoning work alone, instead of through the Catholic Church and their, sacraments and all that. And it was to declare that the Pope of Rome was the Antichrist. That was their mission, and that needs to be our mission. It's the only way we win. And then on the bottom of this study, because I'm trying to be better at references, I didn't give links to the study. If someone wants to go look it up, like I can put links, and I'll show you where to find these, just so you guys know. But all these people. See, these are the great theologians of history, and it's Albert Barnes, Adam Clarke, Koch's commentary on the Hobo Bible, Geneva Bible notes, John Gill, Matthew Poole. I love those guys. But these guys wrote whole, kind of like John MacArthur, they wrote whole Bible commentaries. So it's not just some guy's opinion. These guys did whole Bible commentaries, and you can go out to, so you guys know. So you go out to studylight.org, and you click on Bible Tools, and then Commentaries right there. And then you can find their commentaries. So here's Barnes' Notes on the Bible. All you do is click on that, and you click on Revelation, and you click on chapter 13, and there's his notes, verse by verse explanations of who that beast is, right? And he's going to tell you, it's the Pope. So, you know, it's these great people, these great theologians. These are my teachers. This is where I learned this stuff from. You know, it's not just from SDA. It's not against, you know, just from whatever, from men, you know, on the internet, because people go, oh, you can't trust everything on the internet. Well, no. You know, here's these guys going, and I stood on the sea so he's talking about the sea, and he's talking about the vision and the beast and the 7 horns. So he's going to tell you so much more than I ever tell you in detail, right? So he's talking about the 7 heads, and, you know, the 7 heads are 7 mountains, and he references Revelation 17, you know, right there. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, the harlot of Rome. And there could be no difficulty, therefore, in referring this to the 7 hills on which the city of Rome was built. Right? It's right there. 10 horns. He's telling you the same thing I'm telling you. He's saying the 10 horns are the 10 horns of Daniel 7:25. It's the 10 horns that rose up, the 10 civil kingdoms, you know, and they were supposed to be subordinate. They weren't. 3 of them got plucked out. He's telling you exact same thing, just in so much more detail. I would so recommend, you know, these people. And here's the leopard, you know, the bear, the feet of the bear. I mean, look how much he's given you, right? It's all right there. It's all available for everybody to look at. But here's the deception, right? The deception is that the church, we're not taught this, right? So he'll get into the deadly head wound, and he'll teach you who is the deadly head wound, and he'll teach you it's the Roman emperor. And probably these guys don't, you know, teach everything in perfect alignment. I don't know. I haven't gone through every single note, but they're telling you the truth. And I would tell you straight up, like when I first got woken up and I started reading stuff on the internet, and there was YouTube videos and whatever, I mean, it was really, really, really frustrating for me. And
Yes, it's hard.
oh, it's extremely hard. I couldn't, because everybody else was, every explanation seemed like that made sense, but they were different.
Yeah, they have a flavor of the truth.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's, you know, when you're going through that maze, it's a literal web.
Yeah. So it wasn't the breakthrough moment. I will tell you, you know, I will tell you the breakthrough moment was when I prayed for true teachers, for real teachers with authority, and the Spirit just pointed me to these guys. And so the Spirit pointed me to, you know, looking on Study Light and going to Barnes and going to Clarke, right? Adam Clarke, going to Koch. And you can obviously tell the ones I use. They're in purple because I've clicked on the link. So John Gill will explain, he'll give you more details than you ever want to know. He'll tell you everything that it's not, which is extremely valuable, right? Now he wrote in the 1700s, but he tells you it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, and it is this, which is valuable because he's doing away with the wrong notions. But he's extremely wordy. But, oh, I have learned so much from John. And some of these I don't even really know. I probably should pursue more to see who these people are. But Matthew Poole, amazing studies, very concise, to the point. Spurgeon, you can reference. So if you ever want to read some of his study notes, Spurgeon's right there. And then John Wesley is there. So all this stuff's available online. I use Sword Searcher. You know, so for sword searcher, I can come to Revelation, and I can click on any one of these guys. So right here, I can click on Barnes, and there's Barnes' commentary on Revelation 1. Adam Clark, right? Geneva Bible, John Gill. People point to Matthew Henry, and then when I first started, they made him authority. I'm telling you, compared to these guys, he's nothing. Compared to Matthew Poole, he's nothing. I mean, and so here's Matthew giving you a chapter summary of Revelation 13, and then he'll go through verse 1, and he'll tell you exactly who that is. So he's talking about the Goths and the Vandals. He's talking about, you know, the different things, the same things we're talking about. So this tool is invaluable. I think it's $50, but it's invaluable to me. You know, and while you're at it, you can go and click on King James with the Strongs, and then you can go look up whatever, like the word see, you know, and see what it means, you know, or beast, you know, and you can see what the words mean. So you can get the Strongs right there. So that was that without a doubt. I mean, I'm sure I've said it before, but I mean, I just simply stand on the shoulders of these great men, these great theologians, and I take what they taught and I make it simple. Because their explanations are really wordy, some of them, and the average person's not going to read it, and so I just try to break it down and make it really simple. But I'm telling you, these guys, and see the common note, like you look at Adam Barnes, you look at his profile, and he wrote in what? So 19th century, basically, he was writing in the 19th century. So probably when futurism was coming in. You know, Adam Clark. So here's Adam Clark. So writing in, you know, 18th, 19th century. British Methodist theologian, Bible scholar. Amazing work. Just you can't even describe what they give you, and it's all right here for you guys to study. And here's what what's that?
Is this studylight.org? Or is this your source?
Well, this is studylight.org right here.
Oh, okay.
This is studylight.org, so it's just on all the commentaries. So here's the commentary list, and then you can click in, and then there's all their commentaries, and then there's their profile that tells you who they are.
Okay.
But man, I mean, anything I do, and so you can, here's something that's been so extremely invaluable to me, and not even in regard to prophecy, but you can read a passage and you go, what does that mean? So when I do Bible study, when I'm reading through a passage, I would just take a note. So I'm not in front of my computer because that's distracting to me. I just, you know, read my Bible. And so, but I write a note and I go look up this verse, right? So I'm reading in Hebrews now. So I wrote down, you know, verse, look up this verse, because like, what is that? What does that mean? And I don't have a study Bible, so nobody's telling me what it means in my study Bible necessarily. So then I'll look it up. And what will I do? I will come to Study Light. I will look up that passage, and I will see what the different people said about that passage and what that word meant. And that is so, I mean, I have people ask me questions out of the blue, and I don't really know the answer because I haven't really studied that topic, but I can go look up the verse right here, look up these guys, see what they said, and typically I get the answer. So invaluable. I mean, here's the I'm in awe of these guys' point. You see what I do. You see the websites. You see the stuff I look up, but it's all electronic, right? I got it easy. Right? We all have it easy. We have no excuse. And those guys didn't have any of this. They have their Bible. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, for those guys to do the works that they did, for those guys to put together whole Bible commentaries without a Bible, oy. It's amazing to me.
It is.
So here, look at this quote. This is from Martin Luther. If you do not contend with your whole heart against the impious government of the Pope, you cannot be saved. Whoever takes delight in the religion and worship of the Pope will be eternally lost in the world to come. He's basically saying if you have the mark of the beast, if you revere the Pope and if you obey the Pope, you're not going to be saved.
Right.
I mean, that's just straight up, right? So
It's in direct opposition to what the Pope says.
well, right, and it's well, but not only that, it's in direct opposition to what Billy Graham says. It's in direct opposition to what most Christian pastors say, because they all just treat him like he's another, denomination leader, right?
Right.
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's how severe it is. I mean, that it's so our calling to contend with our whole heart against the Pope.
Right.
I mean, it's true.
That Roman Catholic site you were talking about, in Revelation timeline where you got the Roman Catholics up there and you want to talk to the 1.2 billion Roman Catholics.
Right.
Well,
Well,
we need to tell the whole world it's the Pope, not just the Roman Catholics.
well, right. Agreed. I mean, I guess I don't know what line you have. I mean, hopefully on the Protestant side, hopefully these people are saved by faith alone, and at least they're saved, but they'll be judged for all the things they get wrong, right? On the other side of the story, if you're in the Roman Catholic Church and you're believing in salvation by the sacraments, you're in a really lot of trouble. You know what I mean? So it's not for me to judge anything, but I'm just saying, at least in a Baptist church, hopefully that person believes in the atoning work by faith. They're believing in right things, even though they follow pagan holidays, whatever. At least they believe by faith. That's the important thing. Where that balance is, I can't, it's not mine to decide, but someone who believes in the sacraments and believes in the Pope and prays to Mary, that's a totally different league. So
That's true.
And they're so adamant. So I thought that was a huge, huge quote from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't hide that one.
Feel free to post that on PPC. Or one of the groups.
Oh, the quote?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Shane and I want to get that and share that with some folks.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, I mean, during the reign, again, we've talked about the two witnesses, and we could do that study, but I think you guys get the gist that it's the Word of God, the olive trees which feed oil to the Church of Christ, to the Messiah's church. So, but that's going on during this 1780 years. So they reigned from here to here. The end point when he was taken captive. The start point when he was empowered. This point, 1514, because that's when they were proclaimed as dead. And so the two churches that basically, existed. So those are part of the two witnesses. Those are the two churches that existed during this reign that were killed here. Scriptures being wiped out, and during the Dark Ages they were killed, and then here the Inquisition, and a lot of deceptions coming in the church. So everything fits. I mean, the graphic just makes it easy. I would just, if I was you, when you study, prophecy and stuff, keep that in front of you, because it just helps you sync everything up, and everything gets really simple after a while, because you just see how everything interrelates, with the two witnesses in the Roman Catholic Church, how how these two church eras existed during the Roman Catholic Church, how it makes sense. So
you almost need that laminated. You know what I mean?
Well, it's gonna be, you'll have it in your printout. So when you get the printed version, it's in there. So, but yeah, I guess that would help. Print it up and go talk to people.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.